Robin Miller, we
Mark
just
Pruett.
finished 250 laps of the Desert Diamond 250 at ISM Raceway in Phoenix. Boy, the last 7 laps were awesome.
Yes. So I use the analogy here, Marshall. The 1992 Indy 500 was one of the worst races of all time, but one of the best finishes. So thankfully, the people that showed up tonight, bless their hearts, got to see pretty much a cool last shootout at the last end on the restart when Newgarden did what he did at Iowa a few years ago and got new tires and smoked everybody. I was hoping they got to the green eventually. They kept dragging it out, but I don't know. You have your theories about it, and so do I. I guess it was just in the middle. It was tough to watch for a long time.
It's the race we were afraid was going to happen. It's the race we hoped wouldn't. We know that IndyCar got the old tire dragging out. I mean, you cannot blame IndyCar or the Phoenix track folk for not trying. I mean, they truly said, all right, what can we do? You spoke with a couple drivers after the race who questioned, without some real fundamental changes to the cars, whether it's a different tire or a lot more power, if we can put on a fun show.
I like your idea, more power. Because Scott Dixon said the straights are too short to really get too much of a run on somebody. And what we did see tonight was Rossi was flying, he was passing people.
Drive of his, like he did at Watkins Glen, just phenomenal.
And for a while, I mean, Hunter Ray was fast, he passed some people, but what Milwaukee and Phoenix always were was about traffic. When there were 25, 26, 27 cars, it wasn't ever side by side like Fontana in Texas. It wasn't like Indy and a restart with 50 guys going abreast. So it was always been about traffic here and how you handle your tires. And so what we got to see was at the end kind of an old style Phoenix race.
Yeah, unfortunately we had to sit through 243 laps of not a whole lot happening. So
do we come back?
I don't want to not come back. I mean, the real question is, do we think there's a realistic change or 2 or 3 that can be made between now and this time next year that would make the show better? Now, when I spoke with track president Brian Sperber on Thursday, I think he said, look, a lot of the metrics that mean things to us are a little bit different. It's not all about putting butts in seats. The corporate hospitality stuff is sold out. There's a lot of activation going on where money's coming in from those directions. But man, it still is hard. How's this? Let me put it this way. With all the positive things happening in IndyCar right now, this new NBCSN contract coming up next year, everything seeming to be better, team owners coming in, you name it, everything feels great. You look at half-quarter filled stands, that doesn't fit the message that IndyCar is on the rise. So if you're trying to sell that message and be honest about it, I don't know if you can point at the grandstands and say, does this track or does that track fit the message?
Right. And to your point, I think Brian Sperber and his people did all they could. He's been so far. I mean, the Mario thing was great. He's been on he wants to help this thing make it. He also said, look, you just can't come back and get people back in 2 years or 3. It takes a while, and I agree with that. But maybe it's too close to the NASCAR race. What if it moved to September? I don't know. What if it was the season finale in September? He said, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think a lot of us are lobbying for Gateway because it's in the Midwest, and you know we're going to get 40,000 people, and those guys put on a hell of a show. But at some point, we can't just get rid of all the ovals. It's our heritage, and it's why you're a champion in this series. You're a badass.
I got an idea.
I like that.
Let's talk about the race.
Okay, the race.
All right.
Back to the race.
Josef Newgarden. He was not looking like a winner. He wasn't looking like a podium guy for most of the race. Who do you feel better for or worst for? Do you feel happy for Wickens that he got a podium, kind of put the ugliness of St. Pete behind him? Or do you feel worse for him and Hinch knowing that there was 1 of 2 ways to go in that final call, whether you should take tires or not? And man, they flipped the coin and the damn coin fell down the drain.
Well, you know, I was talking to Sam on TV afterwards, and I just said, you know, you're kind of hosed one way or the other. And he goes, yeah. He goes, we're going to finish second or third if we stop. We have a good pit stop. And he goes, and I tell you what, Wickens did such a nice job on those 3 restart laps to keep Josef behind him. This guy is pretty amazing. And I told Sam, I said, I remember talking to Derek Walker when he was running Atlantic, saying somebody needs to hire this guy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be an IndyCar driver. So but I think a real good bounce back for SPM. I mean, Hinch had a good
amazing,
ride.
Absolutely amazing. Hinch was incredibly strong. Lena Gade engineering her first ever oval race, which was amazing. Blair Perschbacher, again, who we've spoken about, who is Wickens engineer, who's never been one really spoken about much. I mean, that team, we've gone from a street course to an oval, and other than a fluke pass that didn't quite work with 2 laps to go for Wickens at St. Pete getting taken out, and a strategy call that had nothing to do with either driver, you know, this is the team. I realize that Sebastian Bourdais won the first race, Team Penske has won the second race, but the one team that's been the constant, like, holy cow, it's Schmidt. It's absolutely Schmidt.
Yeah, Penske won 10 races last year. I get all that, and they were pretty fast tonight. It was probably going to be tough to beat them without a few things that happened. But if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, look at all the different teams that win. And that's why people will want to watch, I think. And tonight's a classic example. Yeah, they made the right call. I don't know why everybody didn't pit when Ed Jones did, but I would have, and I flunked out of Ball State. But the most important thing is that everybody seems, if you got a good driver and a good engineer and pretty good pit stops, you got a chance. But I like your theory about the podium.
Think about this. We have top 3 of IndyCar's next generation at the end of this race. Top 3, Josef Newgarden. We have Robert Wickens in second. We have Alexander Rossi in third. Not only are they IndyCar's next generation driver, we're here at an oval. A couple of these guys had never seen an oval. One of them until 2016, and Rossi won the Indy 500. Wickens, in his first ever oval race, is on the podium. Dang near could have won the thing. And you also think about how the 3 of them got their start here in America. They're all from North America, learned road racing. All 3 of them then went to Europe, really honed their craft, and then came back. So I just find it interesting that all 3 of these are the young guns who are going to take over when the Kanans and some of the other veterans retire. But Newgarden, you could say, definitely has more oval experience. Not a surprise that he won, but interesting to see that 3 young cats all together are representing at a place where a couple years ago we would have never expected to see a podium like this at Phoenix.
Well, you were here for the test, and it wasn't like SPM set the world on fire, right?
They were pretty wet the whole time. It wasn't working at all.
So big credit to them for turning things around. And, you know, I just think there's always, when I come to a racetrack, I don't want to be able to tell you who's going to win. And, of course, other than Scott Dixon at Mid-Ohio and Watkins Glen, we can pretty much say that. And we don't run the Glen anymore. I like the fact that when you unload here, who's going to be on the pole, who's going to start up front, who's going to win, you don't know.
Let's talk about last things here to close. Robin, your private helicopter's here to pick up,
by the way.
Well,
it's about time.
so
Penske waited on it.
Roger,
Thanks, RP.
Whatever. The Andretti Autosport team had a miserable qualifying. Only one of their cars got through qualifying well. The other 3 didn't. They all had a common problem that they found, and that was when the air jacks were deployed, it was actually catching the floor and causing the floor to bow, which was then basically upsetting the profile of the floor and taking a ton of downforce and also stability away. And so they had to basically go into this race not knowing how fast their cars could be, whether they would be competitive or not. We had Ryan Hunter-Reay running up front. Rossi was the driver of the race, period. Zach Veach, I watched him. Granted, I know he didn't have the best finish ever, but he was charging like an animal. Marco Andretti didn't do a half-bad job, so I think as a team they recovered from a really strange problem that affected 3 of their 4 cars and came back and rallied.
All right, we're going to Long Beach.
I'm going to WrestleMania.
Well, Marshall Pruett's going to WrestleMania, then he's going to Long Beach. And your prediction for Long Beach is?
I have no idea.
I predicted Sebastian Bourdais before the season started to win Long Beach, but I got that all wrong because he won St. Pete. So now I'm going to predict Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Why wouldn't we predict Robert Wickens?
We would, but that's too obvious.
It's too obvious for a rookie. All right, I love it.
I like that. Yeah.
All right, well, we're clearly drunk.
Right.
It's time to go.
Thanks for watching, Racer.
Roger's waiting for you.
He's getting mad because it's I'm on the clock. Marshall Pruett, Robin Miller, nice to be back. Thanks for listening, watching, and reading.
Maybe we'll have him back for Long Beach.